everyone. It's Nomsa here at Ngozi Talk Shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, we've got Hayley T. Wheeler and Angie Simmons. Hayley, she's our guest today. And our topic is processing emotions and how to express and release your feelings.
Uh-oh. What's happened to Nomsa?
Oh, no.
No. Now it's Nomsa's issue, tech issue.
Oh.
I've literally, as Nomsa was talking, both of my phones started bleeping because obviously she'd gone live on Facebook. So it's to let us know that she's there.
All about the emotions and everything that comes with it. So hopefully you guys are going to learn everything from her. And what do you think about the topic, Hayley? I know you chose the topic, and can you explain to our audience what does this topic mean to you and why you chose it?
Yeah, it's such an important thing for me because it's a massive lesson I learned late in my adulthood, I suppose, in my 40s when I had depression. I didn't really, going into depression, I didn't really understand emotions. I'd spent a long time running away from them. And throughout my battle of depression and healing myself, learning the way of processing, expressing and releasing emotions meant that my mental health improved, and it improved everything really, the way I deal with things, the way I cope with things. So it's been a really big thing in my life, and it will continue to be a big thing in my life for the rest of my life.
Absolutely agree with you there, Hayley. Like you, myself, I struggled with depression and anxiety for years, given the tablets. Unfortunately, I didn't deal with my emotions very well. The way I see with the tablets, and I'm not taking away the fact that they do help certain people, I just felt like they blocked me. But what I was also doing on top of that was drinking, anything to shut this up, instead of learning the tools and the techniques to enable me to process how I was feeling. Personally, I found being quiet, getting quiet rather than being that busy ant, journaling my thoughts and feelings has enabled me to understand them better. I don't know about you, Hayley, but mine used to come out in a lot of anger, when I was feeling really bad. Did you find the same?
Yeah, anger, and my default mode in depression became disappointment. So as I was healing, if I felt disappointment in my children or in myself, I knew that it was a really bad day. But anger tends to be a secondary emotion. It tends to be an easier emotion to express than that vulnerability of sadness and hurt and pain. So I think a lot of people feel that anger and mistake it for different things as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. Definitely. I remember somebody saying to me, I used to be scared to approach you. And I was like, me? No, yeah, honestly, because I thought you were going to rip my head off. And I was like, and I didn't realize that, I've actually got a nickname for my avatar then. I've been on my own path of self-discovery and recovery since 2014. So now I've got my avatar for now, but I've also got my avatar for then. And sitting there and looking at, as you rightly said, the emotions come out in different ways. And yeah, mine's called Angry Ange. So when I'm going through certain things, if I'm getting frustrated and getting angry, one of the other things that came was losing my memory and not being able to remember things very well. And yeah, if I'm going through that now, I'm like, who's talking? Is it Angry Ange or Abundant Ange? Let's have a look and let's find out what's going off here. Because the other thing I used to do was procrastinate. Because like you rightly said, it's that being let down, that frustration. And I found that I locked myself away in like a cocoon without realizing I was outwardly facing that, keep away from me. I don't want anybody else here. I don't want to be hurt anymore. So yeah, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. Very insightful now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for me it was about not being seen. I didn't want people to see in to where I was feeling the depression. I wanted to deflect from that. So I stayed away from people. But sort of learning about suppressing emotions, repressing emotions, and then the process and expressing, releasing. I wish we taught that in schools. It's such an important life skill. And yet we're not teaching those skills to children or adults. And even, and I know many of the clients I work with have been to some kind of therapy and never processed, expressed, or released emotions at all. I just think we you know, it's such an opportunity when you've got somebody in therapy to build those skills and teach them. Definitely a skill for life, because I see, you know, how I use that now. I'm not saying I get it perfect every time, and I don't think life is about perfection, but I'm still, well, I'll always be learning about how emotions affect me, how a cluster of emotions will affect me. So maybe I understand how anger is and how anger and sadness is with me, but then I might have anger, frustration, resentment, and I need to learn what that cluster of emotions does to me.
Interesting. So how long have you been on your journey? How, you know, have you
So
found
I started going into depression in 2010, but I'd had 2 bouts of postnatal depression prior to that in 2004 and 2006. But then when I started going into depression, I was completely pretending it wasn't happening. I was just trying to get through my day. But as time went on, so between 2010 and 2012, I used learning as my coping mechanism. So I was working full time, 4 children. I was in college once a week. I was doing 4 courses on top of that, and I was editing my book. So for 2 years, I was literally learning constantly. I was sleeping about 2 to 4 hours a night. And at the end of that 2 years, I was exhausted from learning. I mean, I say I was learned out rather than burnt out. And then things started to get worse. As I gave up the learning, I found that I was struggling more. But it wasn't until 2014 I went to see a counsellor. In the January of 2015, she made an observation about my parenting. She didn't know I had depression, to be fair. To be clear, I didn't tell her. I stuck a smile on my face. I went to counselling for a different reason. But she made an observation of my parenting and told me that she couldn't work with me anymore because she didn't think there was anything else she could do for me. And that sent me spiraling then in 2015. So by the July of 2015, we went on holidays. They cancelled our holiday, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I ended up, that was kind of my first rock bottom, really, the realization that I had to do something. But it wasn't until October 2015 when I had a really dark thought that at that point I knew I had to do something. I was either walk away from my children and my family or get myself better. Unfortunately, I did have a baseline of skills that I could draw on to keep me going in the self-development direction. So I never chose medication. I didn't choose other therapies either. I had homeopathy, did a bit of grief work, and then went on this huge journey. At the same time, discovered my then 11-year-old had been born with anxiety, and that's what his life was all about, anxiety. He didn't know a life without anxiety. So I helped him. I suppose the focus being on him for the first year when I sort of had to do something about it was good, because we are better helping somebody else than we are ourselves. But there was so much learning and helping him overcome his anxiety. I took him from 8 to 9 panic attacks a day to he hasn't had one now since September 2016. It's amazing. He's like 6'3" now. He's massive now. And he doesn't remember it. He doesn't remember all that. And I say all the time, I never forget. But then once he was better, it was my turn. It was my turn to look at myself, and learning this whole process in expressing, releasing has been it's not an easy skill. However, in the grand scheme of things, it is easy. because living with depression was hard. So the actual process and expressing, releasing and learning that skill was, yeah, it was hard initially, but when I look back and I kind of contextualize everything, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. But going from, you know, being depressed and then coming the other side of depression, I've got those skills now. I use those skills. I look at emotions in a different way now. I'm not saying that I still get overcome by emotions. You know, I don't live with depression, and I have indicators that would tell me if I had depression. But emotions are natural. We're going to feel emotions. We have to learn how to manage them, and well, not even manage them, just be aware of them so that we can release them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Hayley. You know, and you talked about being that busy, you know, the study and this, like, it's like a way of deflecting it, isn't it? Oh no, I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to get busy. I was the exact same thing. My journey started in 2000. Well, it's quite a few years before, when I work-related stress. That's how mine started. And then it was the 17th of February. It's going to be 16 years tomorrow. My younger brother was killed on the road on the way to my house for a motorbike ride. I internalized that because it was me that introduced him. But then, unfortunately for me, some people followed suit. So that's when the tablets came in, the drinking came in, the busyness. I was at university. My daughter was 2 the day before. Bless her, it's her 18th birthday today. So if there's any noise, I apologise. She's having her hair done at this moment in time. I have told her to be quiet, but then children. But yeah, I totally agree with you in the sense of it's not easy work. It is easy, but it's not easy sitting there and being with your emotions. Like you know, you said it's, and I find when I'm working with people, getting them to slow down and be with their emotions so they can understand them and they can use the coping mechanism. Like you, I don't take the tablets anymore. I haven't taken them for best part of 8-9 years now, because now I understand my triggers. Why am I feeling that? Oh, okay. And noticing those patterns. So now it's like, right, it's time to get back, sit with yourself and use the skills that you learned. But like you, I totally agree. We need to be teaching children from a very early age how to cope or how to deal with those emotions rather than suppressing them. Because I explained to somebody once, it's like a fizzy pop bottle. Life keeps doing this. And if you just try and take the lid off, it's going to go everywhere. So it's about learning to take off that cap really slowly in bite-sized chunks so we can understand where that emotion's coming from, and we can understand how we can deal with that emotion and how we can move forward. Personal development is life-changing, absolutely life-changing.
Yeah. Well, my motto is self-knowledge is a superpower. And this is something we don't do with children. We send them to school to learn about maths and English and to learn skills to go into the workplace and the workforce, but we don't teach them about who they are. So they are sort of, you know, we're all just going through life, bumping into one another, trying to figure out who we are. And yet if we did this work, and I work with children as well, and you should see the relief on children by understanding who they are as a person, why they are doing what they're doing, and then releasing, you know, processing, expressing, releasing the emotions. It's amazing to see. They get it easier than the parents. The children are brilliant there. And adults, it is hard. And I say that from when you're looking at going through the journey of sort of facing your emotions, really facing them and really being emotionally honest with yourself. Because I look from the emotional impact perspective when I work with clients. We look at not necessarily what they've been through, but how has it emotionally impacted somebody? Because that, again, that's something that people don't tend to do. But if we taught these skills and we taught people about who they were as children, you know, and if you're the funny one, that's great. If you're the one that's good at maths, that's great. If you're the one that's good at English, great. But we don't. All these children are trying to fit in, and they don't know themselves well enough to fit in. So we have a lot of issues around anxiety and things like that because they don't know how to fit in. But by teaching them these life skills, and these are sort of intrapersonal life skills as opposed to the interpersonal life skills, because we want to start. I always go from the inside out. We work from the inside out, and yet in general public, we teach from the outside in. So I just wish we would do more of this intrapersonal teaching. You know, this is you, this is how do you understand your emotions if nobody ever talks to you about them?
Yeah, I think it also is hard. We live in a very, very judgmental world. When it comes to children, like at school, if a child is struggling with their emotions, they're gonna try to do something, but then with the school, they get diagnosed as they're naughty. But instead of going deep, like Haley, what she's saying, like you find out their environment at home, but in a friendly way, not blaming the parents or not blaming the child. Just try to find out the parents and the teachers work with the children so that we can have this stress-free environment for children. My daughter was telling me she's 7 years old. She goes, there's these things that they play with. What is it called? Squishy. I don't know what it's called.
Play-Doh? Play-Doh?
Yeah, no, not Play-Doh. So she was saying, oh, I want to buy one of those. She had one before. She was like, so I was like, what? Why do you need it so much? Because when I'm feeling anxiety or feeling stressed, I have to play with it. I'm like, what do you know about stress, Kayla? She goes, when you're at school and you're talking to people, and some people, they're not very nice to you, they're mean. So you need something and it helps me to calm myself down. Otherwise, I end up telling somebody off. So I'm looking at her, I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, oh, sometimes if I'm studying and if I'm really getting annoyed with something, like if I'm trying to work out something and it's not coming in my head the way I want, I don't have patience, mommy. I get so stressed. So I'm like, when I was your age, I didn't know anything about stress. So I was like, and then I started understanding that parents, we don't really look at children as they're normal like us. We need to try to understand their emotions, how they're feeling inside, and just work out how we can help them moving forward. So then now I try to explain to her that some things are not meant, like when she's doing homework and she's getting frustrated, I'm like, sometimes you have to take some time out. It does not mean that when you're doing something, it's going to happen that moment when you need it. Or maybe sometimes your brain, it tells you to calm down, work things out. So I try to focus and help her, and even my oldest one as well. She's doing GCSEs this year in May. So I explained to her that we don't allow the stress. When we're feeling stressed, we have to go inside our heart and find out why you're getting stressed. Sometimes you may find that you need help from somebody else, the teachers, because not everything you can work it out yourself. And I make it very clear to her that when you're feeling stressed, make sure you communicate with someone, because children intended to think when they're doing exams, things are going to happen the way they want, but it doesn't. And also putting pressure, it does not mean that you're going to get the good results. But when you take your time and study every day by plan, then you get the good results. So I explain to my children, because I have to, like what Hel is saying, you have to understand the emotions. And also me, I'm lucky. I've never got into depression. When I was going through divorce, I just sorted things straight away, because I went to a feeling where I couldn't explain it, where there was a shock, where there was these feelings. And I remember walking in and my GP goes, what's wrong, Norm? So I was like, you tell me, I have no idea what is wrong. It feels like, I don't know. And it's like, has that been a shock at home? I was like, oh yeah, I'm splitting up with my man. And he was, oh, sit down. One of those, sit down. And it was like, I've got to find you someone straight away. I'm glad that you you saw you were not in a good place, and you managed to seek help straight away. So he was so good. He managed to connect me with somebody. But in that moment, the journey did not begin. I went through, I think, about 5 psychologists. I couldn't get it in my head. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. Until I left the woman, I started doing things, no pressure now, in front of the mirror, what she was teaching me. And all of a sudden, I got it. I managed to realize the feelings, how I can control my emotions and my feelings, how to deal with grief as well. And also you have to choose the people that you talk to, because some people, they will drag you to a feeling sorry club, and feeling sorry club makes things worse. Does not help. When somebody tells you poor you, with the moment they say poor you, they're tapping you, the emotions, the everything is like, I shouldn't be going through this. But if somebody like talk to you like a psychologist and just listen to you while you talk about your problems, it does help. So I get you guys where you are.
It's such an important thing. I recently worked with a child who was so full emotionally, but there were issues around the family, and she wasn't enabled to have her say. She couldn't express herself openly. But sometimes, see, there's 2 versions of expressing emotions as well. So you have the unhealthy ranting, and a lot of people think that that's, well, I've had a rant, I should feel better. But the ranting in the moment, when you're angry and you're frustrated, very often doesn't process, express, and release the emotions. You express yourself and you offload. And this is what was happening for this child. She was constantly expressing emotions, but she wasn't releasing the emotional memories attached to things. And I think we have to learn the difference between the different versions of expressing. So the healthy version of expressing is being able to do it when you're not emotionally fueled. So being able to tell, you don't even have to tell the person, you don't even have to speak to anybody else. You can do it on paper, you can do it in a journal, or you can speak to somebody. But it's doing it when you're calm and you're removed from that situation, and it's not a rant where you're just slating somebody or saying whatever comes to your mind and offload them. It's a genuine, this is how I feel, this is how that particular behavior has affected me, this is the emotional impact it's had on me. And I think it's teaching those skills to a child is amazing. Teaching them to adults, when you see adults after they've learned this, I'm going to say simple, excuse me, simple process, but a challenge to do when you've never done it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an hard process for sure. For me personally, like I say, I just thought I was angry, and it wasn't until one of my friends, she turned around and she says, she was a therapist, and she still is an incredible therapist, and she turned around and she says, I think you need to go and see a therapist. So you can imagine my initial reaction. You are, and the mindset I was brought up with is, you don't talk to other people, you don't talk to strangers. Shh, nobody wants to hear you. So I came from that background of, and you know, my parents are lovely parents. You know, they're only dealing with the situation from the tools that they had at the time. Because as those ladies know, it's learned behaviour, and we just teach. And when I went into therapy, I didn't understand, as I said, I didn't understand my emotions. I just thought I was angry, I was grieving, I was firing all those things at other people. And she made me sit and go inside. And it turned out it was some of my programming obviously came from when I was a child. And I wish I'd have learned those things, you know, from the ages of 8. You know, I wish I'd have understood them then. The way that my mum taught me, bless her, was when I get angry, was to go and smash some bottles outside in the bin. My father was a boxer, go and hit the boxing bag. So I was taught from an early age just to let it out instead of, you know, understanding, like you were saying quite rightly, Hayley, it's about that process and expressing it, but understanding it and how to release them properly. I loved you mentioned journaling. That's one of the greatest things that I've ever found. So can you hear them next door, or is it, can you just, you can, can't you? You can't.
Only a little bit, it's fine.
Right. Ladies. So they're not shut the door, so I can still hear him. Door shut now.
No, leave her alone. It's her birthday. She needs to be free.
She is free, but I'm chatting. Well, for me, I started my journey in 2014, and I knew that the stuff that I was doing, that I was learning, and also putting into practice. Everybody knows, you don't need shelf-help, you need self-help. And it was in 2018 when I lost my mum, and I accidentally called my golden gem now, which was a diary. And I just started using it for to have a connection with her. And then it turned into that great big thing, which is a year-long undated journal called How Am I Feeling Today? And journaling has just been such an amazing way for me to release how I feel. And like you rightly said, Hayley, it's not about journaling when you feel angry or upset or anything. It's journaling on a daily basis if you can. It only has to be a couple of sentences. That's what I found. Because then you're noticing, instead of being ranting, I'm able to process a lot of my feelings better when I'm not ranting. So journaling for me has been an absolute game changer, and I highly recommend it to anybody.
And I think, again, it's a tool, isn't it, that you can say what you like and nobody's going to take your words and use them anywhere else. And I think that's so important. Confidentiality when you working with clients. But I will often say to people after they finish work with me, get paper, because you can burn it, you can rip it up, you can do what you like with paper. You don't have to give it to anybody. And the structure, the way that we use letter writing, it works at any point in time. It's not just because they're working with me, but you can do with paper. You can lock it up. You can do whatever you like with that, because there's always a risk. If you're going to be extremely vulnerable, there's a risk, isn't there, of telling somebody else that information is going to go somewhere. And more often than not, we don't want that information going anywhere. And it's our information. So journaling, or however that works, I'm not a regular journaler. I'm awful with diaries and all sorts of things. I've done that for years. I've got one diary, which is like there's a year between entries in it. But it's a tool. And I think the misconception is I always have to tell people how I'm feeling. You don't. You really don't need that other person to validate or invalidate how you're feeling. It really is about you learning that processing, expressing, releasing, so that you can do it on paper, and you're not just sitting with emotions all the time and waiting for your emotional vessel to fill and fill and fill until there's no room anymore.
I love journaling, and when I was going through like divorce and then moving on to personal development, the journey, I've got my diaries where the things that I used to write, sometimes I read it, it's like I can't recognize it, because the feelings, what I was feeling, I'll put everything down. And now when I go back, I just laugh when I read the diary. I'm like, this is amazing. This is awesome. Can you imagine if you're not aware of your feelings and you're not aware? It's like we all go through this cycle sometimes, but you have to learn to actually recognize when you're not feeling okay, when you're feeling joy, and also is important, the environment where you are surrounded with is very, very, very important. There are some people that will go through tough times and they're still surrounded by people who are very, very judgmental. I'm not saying we go around and judging people, but all I'm saying is you need to put you first and put your feelings first, and surround yourself with people that are going to support you, and people that are going to accept you for who you are. For me, I'm very, very lucky because I pray a lot, I meditate a lot. So I've never gone through the major I just took that step and got the advice. The woman gave me the advice, Nomsa, do this, and then you'll be okay. And then I took a psychology degree. But when I was studying the degree, I think I was giving myself therapy as well, because it helped me so much to actually go through that journey of life transformation. And not everyone can transform their lives like what we did ourselves, but you can learn the skills. The skills cannot be taken. No one can take the skills away from you. If you learn the skills and follow the people, like there's so many coaches on social media that are giving out, like even at Ngozi Talk Shows, we have different coaches that have gone through tough times and they transformed their lives. If you follow those people on social media, people that you admire, and just learn from them what they do different to be where they are, I think it makes a big difference. Because when I was talking to Hayley, I was so fascinated with what she does, her work, how she goes deep and helping her clients. And for me, I was like, this is amazing. And I understood her because it's the journey that I had to go through in order for me to be where I am with my feelings and stuff. But now I'm in a point where if I see somebody who is maybe crazy, I look at them, instead of me reacting to whatever they're doing, I'm like, are you okay? Because when somebody is reacting, showing you their feelings or with anger, they're sending you a message to say, I'm not okay. So I've realized with the clients as well, when they're angry, they're like, why haven't you matched me and stuff? I'm like, would you prefer me giving you the wrong person just because you paid me money? Or would you prefer me matching you with the right person that fits your values and your beliefs, your traits and everything? If I wanted to match you, I would just connect you with anybody else. But I am very passionate with what I do, because I know that when you do something, the emotions, you have to put your shoes into that person. And you find that they're like, it's because they start telling you that it's because I've been disappointed before. And then you are like, no. And then you listen to the story, and then you get told the story behind that anger. So it's very, very important to actually be aware of whatever is going on around you. And if you don't feel okay, seek help. Because if you don't seek help, no one is going to help you. We live in a very, very judgmental world. And for me, mostly in the UK, I've realized in my culture, you get told to be strong. But unfortunately, my parents were like Angie's parents. They've never told me to be strong. My parents were like, we talk about problems, we express how we are feeling, and my grandmother would be like talking to me like an adult. So, but in this country, you have to keep yourself to yourself. When you sweep things under the carpet, if we are not okay, you got to pretend you're okay. And so I was like, oh, okay. My sister-in-law wasn't feeling well during Christmas time, and somebody was telling us that she's not well, but she goes, when she comes in, please don't say anything. So, so I'm like, what would I say? Me, I'm Nomsa. Me, I ask. So, and then she comes in, and luckily, she started talking about it, how she's not been feeling really well and good. So that gives me an opportunity to ask and show that we care and we are there for her. And that moment, that's when I realized actually people actually will go underground without sharing their problems with people, because they don't want to give people problems. But why are we on earth? We are here to help each other out. It's like if Angie and Hayley, they're at Ngozi Talk Shows, they come here, you guys speak, share your values with the audience, and then the day you don't feel okay, you don't call Nomsa and say, Nomsa, I don't feel too good. Me, I wouldn't understand that. Please don't ever do that.
One thing I've learned is not to do that.
Don't ever do that.
I think it's hard, isn't it? Because society, we have these messages from society, like you said, in the UK, the messages don't talk.
Yeah.
We don't say it. We do not say, don't talk about your emotions. We say it's hard. But when you do talk about your emotions, you will very, very quickly get the message without somebody saying it to stop talking about your emotions.
Yes.
You have to be very careful about who you do speak to, who you open up to, because I've seen it myself, but I did it myself. When you're feeling that vulnerable, you do test the water with people. You drip things to them and see how they react and respond, to see if they are the person you can reach out to. And this is something I say in a lot of the workshops I do, is if you are the person that they are testing the water with. Things like, did you watch that program last night with that person with mental health? And your reaction will be a telltale sign for that person as to whether you are somebody that they could trust and speak to. And even in jest, sometimes, if you're joking about a program, it's hard. People will go, no, I can't speak to them. They're not somebody I feel I could open up to. So it's about finding the right people, isn't it? It's making sure that you can feel vulnerable with them and be safe and secure with them emotionally. But yeah, I think society just tells us, don't talk about emotions, put them away. We don't want to see them. We don't want to hear them. Sad, really, because there's nothing wrong with emotions. They're actually quite fun when you play with them.
Yeah. I've always talked to people about, we're feeling beings, we're not robots.
Mm.
Why? And right, absolutely spot on, Hayley, that nobody says, oh, I don't want to hear you. Shh. All of a sudden the subject changes, or you feel the energy change in the room, like, oh, but that's what we need. We need to be connected to other people. And if people are struggling, it's finding those people who, like me and Hayley, that have been through it. And I did not do it on my own. I'm sure Hayley didn't do it on her own. We found people that have helped us understand. They've helped us, give us certain things, or we've learned it from our own experiences, or the many courses, like I'm sure you've done quite a few, Hayley, as well. The many courses that we've done, but we've been through it. So don't struggle on your own. It's finding the people that have been there, they've done it, they understand, and lean on them and ask for help. It's huge. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, is ask for help. But what I've learned by asking for help, I feel more connected. I feel that I'm needed, I'm wanted, I'm loved. And I don't feel so alone. Because one of the things that came with me when I was really struggling was I felt like I was alone and that I couldn't talk to anybody. And I would lock myself away. Or I'd go out and drink and be this raging nutter. And I don't mean in that sense, just angry. And I looked like a party person until you rub me up the wrong way. So yeah, having somebody, the support group that you've got, Nomsa, you mentioned it earlier, not those people that are going to feed how you're feeling or change the subject. I don't know if you ladies have ever got that. You try to talk about how you're feeling and all of a sudden that person switches around on them and you're like, wow, okay, I may as well just not speak then. And I think that's where that comes in, Hayley, when you was mentioning that you don't get told to shut up, but you're giving so many signs. I've done it before when I really needed to speak to somebody, and then all of a sudden within a couple of minutes it's about them, and then they're dumping all their problems and all their issues on you, and then you feel even worse. So yeah, why would you speak to somebody if it's going to make you feel worse?
And it's hard as well. Well, I was going to say, we're obviously empathetic people anyway, and it's harder then again, because when somebody starts talking to you, you want to help them, you want to support them. But if we started, we can start at any age, right? People think that this is something that you have to learn early or it's too late. But my clients go from 5 to 80. So it's a massive age range. And actually, you can learn the skills at any point in time. However, if we taught them in childhood, these children would learn to be able to, they won't internalize things. They'll be expressing and releasing things rather than holding them tight. and then waiting to burst, because that's what tends to happen. It's what happened for me. There was just no more space anymore. And the dark, devastating, and it was devastating that day, the thought, it was a result of holding everything inside, because that's what I'm not going to say people didn't actually teach me to do that, but I learned that was the way to use our emotions, was to push them aside or push them down so that nobody could see them, nobody could feel them, nobody could hear them. But they're still there, they're internal, and this is why I work from the inside out. And when they learn these skills, it improves how you relate to somebody and how you communicate to people. Because if you're not emotionally fueled, as you were talking about, Angie, that anger was emotionally fueling you constantly. If you're not emotionally fueled by these huge, powerful emotions, then you're in a space where you can make better decisions, you can rationalize things, you can take a step back and decide whether you react or respond. There are so many benefits to learning these skills, these emotional skills. I'm not massively hot on emotional intelligence, because I think this is, for me, the processing, expressing, releasing is missing from the emotional intelligence. It's okay to have it, it's a great skill, but we are lacking some things that we need a full picture, don't we? We need to take everything on board.
Absolutely. I love it, when you were saying about children as well, the ages can span massively. As you said, my daughter, all she'd seen was this explosion person, and then I used to start listening to my stuff while I was driving the car. And it wasn't until one day I actually changed the CD. She was 9 at the time. And all of a sudden she was like, "Mummy, can you put that back in, please?" And I'm like, "Pardon?" I didn't even realize she was listening to it. The difference in my daughter compared to somebody else at the same age. And she's always saying, "Mum, people always come to me and always asking me for advice." And, and she is that really empathetic child. She still has her unique explosions, as we all do. But what a huge difference. What a huge difference in my daughter just by listening to something while I was driving. And, I'm just going to go back with you on that, Hayley, about teaching children from a young early age. Because if we do that, then we won't have so many people struggling if they're taught from an early age.
Well, I say this in jest, right? But there's some reality to it. The children of today are going to be our carers when we're in a nursing home. So if we teach them those skills now, they're going to be happier when we're in a nursing home. They're going to look after us better. And I say that in jest. But actually, why not value their well-being now? Why not give them those skills to understand themselves, to be the best version of themselves, so that they don't have to go through life like a bumper car? And then we wait for them to break. And this is something. So when I was doing my master's, I was told that I wasn't qualified enough to work in mental health. And luckily, I was at the end of my battle with depression. So I was sort of healing from it, not completely. And it absolutely rocked me that day. It came from a professional. She said I wasn't qualified enough. I could damage people with the words that she used. And I was like, I remember sitting in a session with somebody thinking, am I damaging them? Am I damaging them? And then about 6 weeks later, I thought, do you know what? She has no idea of the work that I do. And I think we forget the power of our words and the power of teaching people about who they are as individuals. That experience was awful. But I'm seeing success with my clients where other therapies who people have gone through these, qualifications are not seeing the same successes, because now these people are walking away with life skills, as opposed to they've sat on a couch for an hour for 6 weeks, just offloading. It's hard work. What we do is hard work, but they walk away with life skills. They walk away with this self-belief, this understanding of who they are. And I just think we've got it backwards when it comes to supporting mental health. We've got it backwards.
Yeah, I think we have to, like what you were saying, Hayley, that the power of words. words have a voice, and also we have to know that people don't define us, because can you imagine what this person, what she said to you, if you have taken that as a truth, you wouldn't have been here today. And I'm glad that you didn't take that as a truth, and you actually said, no, I will do what I was created to do here while on earth. And you continued with your dreams, you continued with your journey. And if anyone tells you that you are not enough, who are they to say those words? Who was she? Is she a God to tell you actually your blessings are not good enough? Because you having that courage to actually say, you know what, I'm going to be a mental health coach. I'm going to change people's lives. That is courage. That is you saying, you know what, I'm going to share what I've been through with people, and I don't want somebody else to go through that journey. I'm just going to save people's lives. That is saving lives, because not everyone wants to talk about mental health issues. Not everyone is mostly, it's like myself in Africa, people tell you to shut up when you have a problem. You have to woman up, or you have to man up, and you got to be strong. When you talk about problems, you are shaming people, this. And I actually set up a group with my family, and I talk about things. I talk about problems. In that way, I'm teaching my family it's okay to talk about problems. Because it's not okay to actually put photos on social media and pretending that life is beautiful. Well, yes, it's beautiful, but sometimes life is not okay. So you just keep it real. So for me, I try to keep it real. And keeping it real is like I'm teaching my family that you have to be the person that you want to be. In order to be that person, you got to show some human in it. There's got to be some human in it. And also, I'm just so happy that you didn't listen to. There are so many people, like so many good speakers, when you listen to them, they tell you that they were discouraged by people that they cross path with. And me, the reason why I actually realized that in this country, people actually drives people to insanity. I shared a dream with somebody, and the next thing I see the police. When I think about it, I laugh now. The police and the social services are coming into my house. Apparently, mentally health problems are being sent to the doctors and stuff. And one of the social worker, she comes to me. She says, "Nomsa, I can see that you are a very, very strong person. So what I'm going to tell you now, don't repeat it." She goes, "You need to chase them out," because that's what they do to people. They terrorize people for no reason. So she was like, "You need to do what's right for you." And so I was like, "Okay, thank you." And she was like, "Yeah, do what's right for you." And the next thing I was like, "Okay, let me sit back," because at the time I was studying psychology. Let me sit back and just watch the game. I like to play the game of life. And they kept coming and they kept coming. And in the end, now I call them, like when somebody comes in, they were judging me. They were like, treating me like I'm Isalam Seka who came to the UK, and the other woman, she even was like, "Have you got your papers yet?" So I was like, "This woman, what are these people doing?" So one day I called them, I sat them down. I said, "Listen, I'm talking now. I am Nomsa, and I'm talking now. You guys been terrorizing me." So then I was like, now I do understand why people don't talk about problems when they have problems. And me, I didn't talk about any problems. I just sharing the dream with somebody else. And now you're terrorizing me is scary. And I was like, I go to church. God exists. God speaks to people. And I was like, even people, I can set up my TV channel and tell people about dreams, and people wanting to know, people pay money. And I was like, to listen to people is like, but for me, I respect my life. I'm a Christian and you guys are terrorizing me. So I had to kick them out. I had to ring the solicitor and say, can you give me the sections after sections so I can actually read them out loud to these people? So I read them out loud and they went. But after they left, they left me with questions that these people that go through, lose children, do they really have problems, or they're innocent? And it's some other story that one day I might have to do a campaign about it, because they really opened my eyes. So I was like, when I was chasing them out, I was like, listen, I'm studying psychology. And I have a British passport. I wasn't born in this country. I have a British passport, and my journey has been a very, very long journey for me to be where I am today. So you're not returning my mind to back where I was. And that's why I'm saying to you, Hayley, that I'm really, really happy that you are doing what you are doing now, because you didn't listen to any voices. By the way, we are running out of time. Angie, do you have any words of encouragement? I know it's your daughter's birthday, so happy birthday to her. And hopefully you guys are going to have an amazing, amazing day today. And please tell the audience who you are and when they can find you.
And Hayley, I second what Nomsa says. I'm glad you didn't listen either. And I'm glad I didn't listen to those neggheads that told me the same thing. Not in the same way, but so
honestly, I think you should meet up with her, tell you how she goes deep. It's amazing what she does. It's really,
definitely need to have a one-to-one, Hayley, for sure. Sounds there's quite a few synergies there. So everyone out there, my name is Angela Simmons. You can see it. I'm a personal development and mental wellness mentor. I work with women over 30. I help them by turning my mental mess into my message. I help women over 30 untangle their internal world so they can expand their external world in many different ways, just like Hayley. So just my message to anybody out there, if you're feeling alone, please reach out. Reach out to somebody that you can trust, or reach out to a coach that can potentially help you get through what you're going through right now. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram. All right, over to you, Hayley.
Thank you. Really encouraging. Thanks both. Yes, Hayley T. Wheeler. You will find me on all social media as Hayley T. Wheeler. Apparently, I'm easy to find, so I'm told. I am the founder of Emotion Mind Dynamic Therapy. I help people understand their internal patterns. We go really deep. We look at the emotional roots of things, and there's lifelong changes because they're life skills to learn. You can find me on all platforms. I have a website, www.emotionminddynamic.co.uk. And yeah, just, my message for everybody, and I always say this, if you're going to take one thing away from anything I've said, you are the most important person in your world, regardless of who you look after. You are the most important person in your world. Look after yourself first.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hayley. And thank you so much, Angie. And I'm sure our audience appreciate you guys. And I hope that this video has provided our audience with a valuable insight and on how to process your emotions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, be part of Nkosi Talk Shows family, and like us on Facebook as well, and give us some stars so we can reach more people in our community. And God bless everyone, and live with grace. Okay.